Yeah, I would say you intimidate people if they're not able to fully emerge into their own power.
Because you could lift a man, no?
Yeah, or because of that, maybe, yeah.
The undefinable, this part of you developed alongside your healing journey. Did it also grow?
It's who I always was, but I didn't have the self-belief to really step into my power, because this is like my higher power now. This is my higher self. Nothing can take me down. Wrestling became my saving grace, and I actually called myself the Amazing Grace when I started. It just evolved into the undefinable because it's kind of a way how I like to live my life, not really letting one aspect define me. Real power's within, not in controlling others, in getting results from others. That can always be taken.
And you had that moment for yourself?
Oh God, I fell from grace, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How did that look like for you?
I'm going to get emotional.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Real, Raw and Authentic. Today I'm in London again, one of my favorite places to be. And today I'm sitting with Sadie Gibbs. Sadie Gibbs is the Undefinable. She's a professional wrestler and coach. Sadie, I'm so happy to have you here. It's wonderful.
I'm happy to be here. I've followed you for a long time, so I find you extremely inspirational.
Oh,
so.
That's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Same. I thought your journey is
I think we
incredible.
followed each other at the same time, actually, didn't we? Yeah.
True. And I follow your path of being a professional wrestler, but at the same time, you're also a coach, right?
Yeah, so I've been in coaching now since I was, 17. I wanted to be a coach. So I said I wanted to help people channel their emotions when I was 13. But in that, I became a personal trainer. And then through that journey, I think because that's been my journey my whole life, learning how to master my emotions. And I've always done that through physical fitness. So that was my outlet. But yeah, how I found myself into wrestling, that was a journey in itself because I was a pole vaulter, or a gymnast, a pole vaulter, then went on to bodybuilding competitions, which was really not good for my mental health at all. And then found myself on an app, see a clip of WWE, because we all watched it when we were kids, right?
True, I know.
Everyone watched it, but then life brought me away from it. And I saw a clip and I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I just went on the tryout page, applied for a WWE tryout, ended up getting one, which was, I think because of the profile I'd already built online as an athlete, I got it through that. So I went to a tryout with no clue about the being in the ring, no awareness of the ring, because honestly it's a journey. It's only just started clicking after nearly 8 years of wrestling now. And yeah, I had a tryout. They said I'm everything they would hire. So I went away, found out about the indie scene, like the movies have indies, so does wrestling. So I found out about the indies, went to indie wrestling shows and was like, wow, this world is crazy. And just fell in love with it. I've always been an entertainer and I've always been a performer since a young age. I've always loved performing. It's kind of a way of how I've always expressed myself. So yeah, and I've always been a bit of a fighter. That's how I've always channeled my emotions. It wasn't always the best way when I was younger, but it was how I channeled. So I would say wrestling became my saving grace. And I actually called myself the Amazing Grace when I started. And my theme music was Amazing Grace. And then it would drop into like this really deep beat and I would then come out.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so
awesome.
that was what I based my whole wrestling character on before. But it just evolved into the undefinable, as has my coaching evolved into undefinable living, because it's kind of a way how I like to live my life, not really letting one aspect define me, because I'm forever changing, I'm forever growing. And if I let that limited belief of who I am then define who I am now or who I want to become, it doesn't allow me that undefinable process of becoming, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all, for me, it's all about just going, okay, this is who I am now, accepting that, this is who I was, this is what I was, and just allowing that process to unfold into this is what I want to be. But I may have a lot of work to do within to become that person. And yeah, who I am now, God, 5 years ago, I don't even recognise the person I was.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Can you describe a little bit your journey from, like, you mentioned emotional regulation, I guess, was
massively.
A little bit a thing.
So I was very unregulated.
How would that look like, let's say, as a teenager or a child?
I guess I was always an overachiever up until my mum and dad split up. And then my mum, still an overachiever. I've always been an overachiever. Like nothing's ever good enough. What's next? What's next? That kind of mentality. But then when my mum and dad split up, that's when I think I struggled emotionally. And I started training more. So I'd run up and down my stairs in the house and do press-ups at the bottom, sit-ups at the top. I just would not stop training. I was
How old
obsessed.
were you?
About 13.
Okay.
Well, 8 the first time, and then I think they got back together. But it was, that dysregulated home, and then I'd just be training all the time in between being a pole vaulter because I gave up gymnastics when I was, I can't remember the age. I did gymnastics for 8 years, so I think I was about 12, 13 when I gave up gymnastics. But but how I channeled my emotions was physical. That was how I regulated myself. So. If not, I think I just would have been a very angry child. But I did it through physical fitness. I always found I loved martial arts. I just loved the different martial art forms. So I dabbled in that my whole life. I did Muay Thai. I did BJJ for a bit as well, mostly to help with my wrestling and MMA. So I've done a lot of mixed martial arts, but it's just physical fitness is just my outlet and how I express and how I built my confidence to this day. So with the coaching side and my Undefinable living, it's a big part of how I've become who I am and probably how I built my become more of who I want to be by shifting my emotions through that. Because I think we can become emotions too much when they're not actually who we are.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, like our emotions can feel so powerful that I think we sometimes feel like they're so real and it's like us, every emotion we feel rather than just letting it come in, which I do now. I'm very good at sitting within it. That whole saying of you should sit in it, and process. I used to be a runner. If I was getting uncomfortable or I was overwhelmed, I'd go on holiday or book this or I'd want to escape it or I'd find a new impulse or,
basically always a way to avoid it or
I was an
distract
avoidant.
yourself.
Yeah, massively an avoidant. And that actually deterred me from everything that I wanted and everything that I wanted to be because I was constantly, instead of running towards the things I wanted, I was letting fear. And I always thought I had courage and I've always been courageous and I've always gone for, but I didn't realise fear was what drove that for a long period of time. Because
How did you identify that?
Fear's as powerful as love. I think, when did I start unmasking and kind of having my spiritual awakening, shall we say? It's probably about 5 years ago, the process. But I believe once you have a spiritual awakening, you're constantly having spiritual awakenings. They're not just one and then you're like this spiritual being. It's a journey once you choose spirituality and growth. But yeah, I think last year's when I really when I went back to wrestling, when I decided to go back to wrestling, and it was an ex-partner of mine actually said to me, I was sitting talking about wrestling and he went, you're a coward. And that, I mean, tough love, but that's always worked for me. That's what I grew up with. So, and I remember laying in bed and I was like, oh my God, he's right. Why am I not wrestling? And then from that, I made the journey of pushing through fear that had kind of controlled. And still, I had a lot of love in my life. Like I'd still put it in other things like my plants maybe and other aspects. But in terms of what I actually wanted for myself, which was the relationships I wanted in my life, they were all driven by people pleasing and fear, not through love, boundaries, self-respect and self-worth, which is, I think until you give the love to yourself, now I've got to the point, until you really give that love within, you are derived by fear and external validation, and that always dictates your next step. If you're not getting the validation you need, if you're not getting the instant validation, you'll go backwards, That's like, okay, I'm not worthy enough of that. I'm not. But once you start giving that love to yourself, I feel like your journey you just start believing you're worthy of everything you go for, and you don't let that hold you back. You don't let people's opinions, you stand up for yourself more than going, okay, why is that person saying that about me? Or why is that? Yeah. You're like, no, this is how I feel about myself. This is what I want from my life. And it's more about self-empowerment than the need for, when you're doing things for the external, you're not as driven. It's a different drive. I
That's
can't
so
really get to the
true.
point.
No, I totally agree
When you
with
do
you.
things from like a place of purpose, passion, and like authenticity, like you said, real, raw, and authentic, then you're nothing can stop you. I think when you're doing things for that external love and that external validation and that constant need to fill a void, which I think when I first got into wrestling, my drive was different. I think it was for external reasons. And that's why when I gave up, and I say I gave up, the pandemic kind of completely altered my course and I just went on a new path, which I needed. It took me a long time to come back because my reasons for coming back were very different.
Was there a moment, a sort of a turning point, something that changed everything for you?
I say my reasons when I started were the same. I found grace, but I didn't have the inner strength and the inner self-love and worth to get through it all. So the moment all that external stuff went, I think that push just, I didn't have it in me for a while. I didn't have that strength and I had to build my self-worth and who I am and really find out who I am, because I say when I got signed, I got imposter syndrome, but I think it was just, I didn't feel worthy of that point of my life, which is imposter syndrome, right? It's what we call it. So we can achieve all these destination points, but unless you build the character and who you need to be when you get to that point so that you can stay grounded in it and not allow something you've obtained to be bigger than you, then you're not going to enjoy the destination anyway. The destination's just going to be, oh, I'm here now. Now what's next to fill this void that I'm now feeling even more so at this point?
Yeah.
Because it gets bigger. When you reach the destination point that you make bigger than yourself, to take that emphasis away from yourself, the void gets bigger and you've then got it's a harder fall from grace from that point, if that makes sense.
And you had that moment for yourself?
Oh, God, I fell from grace, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How did that look like for you?
I'm going to get emotional. God.
Okay.
Oh.
It's okay. I wish I could touch you. Okay.
I'm okay. Just doing the shadow work was really hard for me. So going into like my parents and I think just really going into, God, it's bad. Shadow work's hard and I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. But until you go into all of that and the reflection work and you dive into why certain behaviours, so like you'll have like these emotional outbursts and it's all trauma related and you're like, why have I behaved like that? Why have I had that reaction? Why do I go into a stubborn state where I just can't get past myself and things like that? And then you're controlled by this part of yourself that you just feel like you have no control over. And I mean, The Chimp Paradox was one of my first self-development books, and learning and being able to identify that part of myself as a chimp for a period of time was life-changing for me. It's a brilliant book. I can't remember who writes it. I'm not very good with names.
Really, also a terrible
but that once I started identifying, there was a lot of trauma responses that was dictating my journey and what I actually wanted for myself, which has taken years to this point now. That's when I just started to change and become more of who I wanted to be. And then I created my slogan, you aren't defined by who you think you are, defined by who you want to be, which I've got on my ring jacket. And that work ethic will always, get you through things. The person, if you're working towards who you want to be, you'll obtain the things that are meant for you as well. But I don't know why I got so upset there. I think just it's such a journey. It's really hard to sum up in a short spam, that makes sense. Like the journey to who I am now, like people wouldn't even recognize me to who I was. Like going out and this, I'd go out most weekends and I'd be in states, like the amount I would drink. Now I could drink probably the same, but I'm not in a state. So this is where I say, like, the reason you end up in states when you drink is because of it brings your subconscious to the forefront when you drink or when you, and then you've got all that, how do I word it? It's like that I know it's like a cry for help, really. Like you're allowing it all to come to the surface. I just used to think I was wild and fun and not fun because the States, like
Rebellious.
I said,
Yeah.
rebellious,
Yeah.
but it weren't. I was just crying out for help, really, probably. If I look back at deeper, like it was just a girl that needed a hug. And that's really, because I don't end up in them states now. I carry myself very different. And, you know, it's because I've healed. Like I've done so much deep work that I could drink probably the same amount as what I did before and I wouldn't be in the state I was in.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see why.
Sometimes also, I don't know if you can relate, but sometimes it's also so fear-based, and that feeling of loneliness comes up a lot, and that creates that struggle.
It's the struggle is with yourself. Like people can blame it on all these we blame it on all these external factors and the situations that come into our lives. So there's a reason we attract being in a narcissistic relationship. Maybe there's a little bit of narcissism in ourselves. In another way, maybe you're an empath that mirrors similar traits to a narcissist, you know, because we crave the love, we crave the validation. So there's mirroring always in what we attract, and the trauma we attract is mirroring what we need to heal from. And that's something that was really hard for me when I did a bit of therapy last year, and that was a hard thing, but that really started to open. I was like, wow, I'm seeing things differently and I'm feeling things differently. And it was really hard to face because you're like, the first therapy session I had, for example, I just gave, and it was with my ex-partner. And he said, maybe when she's going in her room, shutting the door and avoiding the confrontation or because I've never been able to communicate as a child, maybe that's like a scared dog going in a corner and shutting itself away. And then you're like, oh, wow, maybe that's right. And then you start to see it differently. I thought I was being strong walking away, shutting the door. But you learn that you haven't been able to communicate as a child for so long. That's why you struggle with confrontation and communication, because you've never had your feelings validated or heard growing up.
Yeah,
you know,
or
it's
you've
always
also
been
witnessed the arguments between your parents.
You've witnessed arguments, and that's how you've dealt with it. And yeah, I think people don't want to look too deep into themselves because it opens a can of worms. We use these sayings. I don't even know what that saying means, but it opens. It's Pandora's box, right?
Yeah,
Pandora's box. That's a good saying. The moment you open that, there's layer after layer after layer until you become who you were supposed to be the entire time. Not because we're born from parents and everything, but we are still a soul. We're a spirit before we're even born. And once we can fully emerge into that soul and spirit, away from all the trauma, away from the physical form and aspect that we grow into, what our body remembers. Like when we talk about trauma, if we haven't healed, our body will shake if there's certain things. Like if there's certain things that we talk about and our body goes, oh, that's still quite fresh, you know? And then there'll be other things you'll talk about and it's like, your body doesn't remember it, you've healed from it, there's no response. Yeah, trauma's powerful, and trauma leads into trauma and trauma. And I think some people won't say they have trauma because it might not be as big as someone else's, but trauma in any way that's affected you mentally, spiritually, it's put you in a state of fear where you now have limited beliefs, and anything that's blocking you from your full potential and purpose is trauma related, that you have to open Pandora's box and go, okay, remove this. And I had actually a big awakening with my dad last year, and that was huge. This was when I left that last relationship, and the awakening with my dad, he picked me up from the station. And, you know, I've got past the point of like where you get angry with your parents, because I think we all come from, can't blame our parents. They've done the best they can, a lot of them. And we've all come from, some of us are given more strength in order to overcome this and make the changes and, you know, stop the cycles. But then like sometimes it's for the younger generation to bring it to light, you know. And this discussion I had with my dad, so he picked me up, you know, you're expecting to come out, and I'd been away for 3 months, just left, my engagement just broken down, I was coming back homeless, to move in with my clients. Everything was in storage. So I was in like a really position where I should have felt broken, but I was still positive. And I was
Fragile, though.
I was definitely fragile, yeah. I needed a hug from dad,
Yeah,
right?
of course. This is the moment.
So I came out and he wasn't at the walkout bit. So I'm like, okay. And, I get a phone call. And I know I'm already going through what the process was because my inner child, I've learned to comfort that and parent that before the situation unfolds. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a phone call. He's going to be really stressed out, stressing to park. He's going to be moaning about that. And I kind of already knew. But this is how my dad copes. This is what I mean. It's not. And I get the phone call. Oh, fuck's sake, the car park machine. And I'm like, okay, you've already processed this. It's fine. Then I go out and he's come out and he sees me dragging all my cases. And he still looks and then goes back to the ticket machine. And I'm like, and I had like loads of bags. I get to the van and it's just an example. And I go and I'm trying to help and like keep the situation calm because obviously he's overwhelmed for some reason. He's struggling to cope whatever was going on with him at that point. And I just he went, come on, put your stuff in the car eventually. And then I was like, all right, I've got 3 bags, Dad. And he looks around and goes, because he's in a stubborn mood now. Because maybe he didn't want to be, I don't know, right? Yeah. But in my head, I'm like, this is not right. This is not right. I'm comforting my inner child and I go, put it in, I get in the van, I go, how are you, Dad? And then you've held the mirror up, right? You've gone, here's a mirror because you haven't reacted. You're not sat in eggshells, which I probably would have done as a kid. And you've held the mirror up. Well, fucking, I'm running around after you. And I just went, pull the car over. I said, I'm fucking done with you. And I swore. And I've never spoken to my dad like that. I went, I'm fucking done with you. And I think I was at the breaking point because I was like, you get to a point where you're like, you start to do the work on yourself and you're like, I don't deserve to be treated. And this is where I say,
boundaries. You're
giving the love to yourself. And the boundaries, what most people don't realise is they have to come with your parents first before you can level up. Until you've healed with your parents, that is the foundation to all your relationships. So until you have that difficult conversation with your dad and your mum and you're able to level up. So that conversation with my dad, I got out of the car, tripped over all my cases. I was in hysterics, like could not breathe. That was deep healing. Whatever that was that came out was bottled for a long time. Yeah. And it was like, couldn't breathe. He rings me back up and he goes, have you calmed down now? I'm coming round. And I'm like, this is what I have in my relationships with men. The kind of, okay, have your feelings calmed down now? Let's brush it under the carpet, and then you kind of, that behaviour. And I was like, I'm getting a taxi. I said, I don't want to hear from you ever again. Obviously, I was in a really...
Yeah.
And, that was big. That was very hard. But I was so hurt and broken already from the relationship and everything. I go back to get my keys from my previous relationship's house. And my dad's there. And he goes, oh, I've got your dad in here. So I'm like, I've got 2 of them. I walk in and then my dad says, this is long story short. He goes, I always said I didn't want to be like my dad. So here's the cycle, right? And I was in a really cold mood by this point because I'd got myself together. Yeah. So I just went, how's that going for you? Like that. And he went, well, it's in us, isn't it, Sade? It's in us. And I said, you're in me. I was always dealing with my emotions with anger, resentment, and that kind of, no clear communication, right? Mm-hmm. So he must have had a lot on where he couldn't pick me up that day. But instead of clearly communicating, Sade, I'll get you a taxi. That's going to be better for you, and I would have been like, no, don't worry, I'll get it. That's clear communication. Mm-hmm. But this is what happens when your parents aren't brought up with that either, and they've been brought up in maybe not being able to express their emotions and stuff. It just, the cycle continues. Hence, I always said I didn't want to be like my dad. My dad's amazing. He's done the best for us. But emotionally, he struggles, and he's struggled to kind of, like I did for my whole life. And that's why when I was 13, I maybe said, I want to help people channel their emotions because that was my purpose. That's what I've always had passion for. But that was a breakthrough for me and my dad.
Yeah?
That whole situation, that's not only changed me with men now and how I carry myself with men and what I allowed from men. I'm now in an amazing relationship and it's completely different. It is early days, but the way we talk to each other, the way we communicate. I'm still triggered. I still get triggered. But I communicate. I'm feeling like this. I'm in a state of sabotage. I can feel it. I'm wanting to push you away. Don't know why. And then we work through it. And then I feel I heal a little bit more.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But that's all come from a journey to this point. And like I said, that breakthrough with my dad where I've gone, no, I don't want this kind of relationship. Whether it's my dad, stranger, I don't want these relationships in my life, whoever it is. I want love, I want care. And that's just where I got to. Because sometimes people can love you, but they don't treat you like that. You feel like, you're like, do you love me if you treat me like, but they do love you, but they don't know how to. The cycles are so tough, but we can't blame people. We can't blame our parents for why we are the way we are, why our lives turn out the way they do, because they've done the best they can. And it's for us to then go, okay, I've recognised this. Now I'm going to bring the mirror to your face and show you if whether we can improve our relationship from that, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But you've got to grow now, you know? And not everyone wants to grow. They'd rather walk away from a relationship. They'd rather go, nah. Whereas, you know, a lot of the time, if people love you, they'll want to grow and have the better relationship with you, you know? And you've showed them the kind of strength that they wasn't able to find in themselves. You've given them that power back. You've showed them, like when my dad said I didn't want to be like my dad, you know, I've gone, well, how's that going for you? And it's enabled him to go, wow, I do react with my emotions like my dad sometimes. He's probably not, you know, now the fact that so we didn't talk straight away after that. It was a couple of weeks and he rang me up and said, Sade, so he's reflected. I don't think it's fair that you said I've not been there for you. Because again, I said there was a lot more context to the conversation. And I said, I didn't say you haven't been there for me. I said, you've been there physically. Where was you emotionally? Where was you when I needed a cuddle or, you know, emotionally, like, did I have you there? I had you physically. I had a dad physically. And he was like, yeah, you're probably right. And that was like, wow.
That's huge.
Massive to say that. No defensive, no. And that's healing for you as a dad and daughter. And, you know, it's
beautiful.
But that's why a lot of people, you know, therapy, you get these conversations in therapy and these breakthroughs in therapy because you're not able to always do it within yourself. But there's so much within families, especially like at Christmas, because I had it, when you're sitting in a room and there's so much unsaid. These conversations, the raw truth, the raw authenticity of what you want to feel and like people facing their truths and their pain. And I crave that connection in life, in all aspects. And sometimes my sister's like, not everything has to be so deep, Sadie. And I'm like, why? Why not? Be a much better world if it was, wouldn't it?
That's very, very brave also, because I think a lot of people can probably relate to what you're saying. They're triggered around their parents. It's not about per se blaming them, but sometimes we get very angry, particularly at the beginning of our healing journey when we realize also the things we didn't have, the lack of things, the absence of
and we can fixate
awareness
on that and go, well, this person's got this and this person's grown up with love. And you look in envy sometimes growing up because you don't understand it. You know, I remember being young, going away when my mum and dad split. I went away with my best friend at the time a lot. And her dad turned around in a game of cards and we were talking about something and he went, think about, it's because you've got a broken family. Very harsh. I've never forgotten this moment. And I remember crying. I was only young. I didn't understand that. But he said, think about, like, in that way, broken family. And that stuck with me for a long time. But it's true. You see, like, so he's made that comment and you're looking at what she's got and she's got mum and dad together and you can watch in envy and then create this resentment that you're hard done by it and you've grown up with less and you have a lack. But you haven't. You've grown up with a chance to have more wisdom, break more cycles, learn more about yourself. The more pain we endure, the more we can change. But you have to allow that pain to be part of the process. And you've almost got to enjoy pain. Like in any aspect. I think that's why I love training. Maybe that's why training for me was always my outlet because it was pain. Like sometimes I'd go out running to the point of agony. Like,
You
but I'd
push
love it.
yourself.
Yeah, but I'd love it because I'd lay on the floor and go, because you're free from yourself for a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That pain is like a surrender. You have to surrender to it at the end. And I think that's what, when we fully get to that breaking point, you know, like alchemy, they say you have to reach breaking point. When we fully get to that breaking point, it's why we have breakthroughs, because we've surrendered to truth and we've surrendered to the outcome that's needed and the wisdom that's needed in order to grow and change. But all the resistance that we put is the real pain. That's the real pain. That's the real struggle, the resistance. But we'll do it. It's part of being human.
It's true.
No one wants to feel the discomfort until it's necessary. And
do you think your relationship with your father would have been different, or let's say your healing journey would have been different if he didn't take accountability?
I think I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have the parents I had. So I don't, like, my mum and dad did the best they could with the situations they had, circumstances they had. My mum's a real survivor. But when I say survivor, she lives in survival mode and fearful of everything, controls her environment to the point that was put on me as a kid, where I now have really bad OCD and things. And I'm working on that at the moment because I know having to have your environment controlled all the time is a coping mechanism. So I'm working on that.
False sense of safety.
False sense of safety. And it's strange the things we do, but I think we can all look back and go, we would have been different with different upbringings and different circumstances. Like I said, my dad dealt with his emotions through anger a lot, and we grew up seeing that, and that's how I then dealt with my emotions. I thought that was the right way, you know, to deal with my emotions, like hitting walls and things like that. You know, I hit a fair few walls growing up. But this is all learning. Like I said, the person I was 8 years ago was a girl that was in a lot of pain, and I didn't know that. I didn't want to face that. I didn't want to. So yeah, I'd have moments of feeling like that love and that strong vibration of love. But I think fear is just as strong a vibration, and it will attract everything you don't want rather than everything you do want. And it's when you make that transition into, oh God, I've been running from the things I actually do want because I'm worrying about, I used to say I don't want to end up like my mum. But in that, I'm creating so many limited beliefs, meaning I'm blocking potential good relationships, a family, which I do want. You know, I was blocking all the things that I want because I was like, and then I became this hyper independent, go, which I love. That will never change about me. But I'm hoping I can stop chasing now and start attracting more and sitting back a little bit more.
That's an important point.
Yeah, because fear's chase.
We chase relationships. I think that's one thing where we identified a lot. We're chasing the love, the let's say emotionally unavailable partner.
But again, that's the mirroring. What I had to face in myself. I was like, why do I keep getting these emotionally unavailable partners? I was emotionally unavailable to myself. So how am I going to attract someone else? I'm wanting someone completely emotionally available to themselves, in touch with their emotions, but I wasn't that.
Oh, that's a strong point. Okay.
This is the hard truths that we have to, that I came up with, is that I'm looking at my situations and I'm going, why do I keep attracting this? Why am I in these situations? Why do I keep having trauma after trauma? And I was allowing these situations, and it was mirroring in me what I was as well. I wasn't avoidant. And I wanted all this back. Yes, I would give love, but I would retract it just as quick in my relationships. And that was a hard truth to admit. I was inconsistent.
There's a bit this sort of almost disorganized attachment.
Give love, but then the moment I felt maybe vulnerable, take it back.
So it's the anxiety. I'll take it away and have the moment of control. Of like, if I take it first, then I'm in control.
And that's not love. Love just is open, gives, it trusts, and you give that person you in any relationship and connection. You don't hold back. You don't have, in anything, friendships, you know. I'm very selective now. Like, I only have relationships that I feel so safe in. I'm very, so if I sense it, I'm like, do I feel like I could tell this person when they've hurt me and they're not going to jump off the handle? They're the sort of relationships I have now. And I think if you can't tell a friend, a loved one, you've really hurt me there and you've offended me, and they don't attack you or go, you don't get, I'm really sorry I've made you feel like that, but I didn't mean it to come across. Then are they really relationships you want if you can't have difficult conversations? I just think everything is everything worth having is a difficult conversation on the way.
Yeah.
I've had so many with myself.
That's so strong.
So many with myself. So many hard truths I've had to face. I've been in very dark places to this point now. And I'm glad I went to all those places. And through it all, I had one amazing friend. Because I think you haven't got to tell the world when you're struggling. But as long as you've got one person, you can run up in tears and say, without your armour, without my wrestling gear on, and tell them that you're struggling, and they give you that kick up the butt, like, do you know who you are? You know, you've got this, you've done this, and they remind you of your power. That's relationships. They should always be reminding you of your power. Any relationship in your life, coaches, mentors, friendships, everything should be reminding you, not when you're down, they come and join you as a wound. And there was something I saw actually, I don't know if it was on a podcast or a book, but we have wound mates.
Wound mates.
Wound friends.
What is that?
So we stay, how did they describe it? That for me was huge. So like you'll meet people on the level of your wounds, and they're often the ones that you can go out with, get in states with, but they're not someone you'd go for a coffee and have a nice chat with. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay, interesting.
So like wound friends.
Wound friends.
Like you have wound lovers and karmics. Wound. And that's when I started to realise, like, oh, okay, what relationships do I want? Do I want people that can turn up when I've had an operation and they'll come see me and just have a coffee, or friends that only want you for a good time? You need to recognise that, because that's your you're setting the tone for all your relationships and all your with that. And the quality that you want in your relationships, because once you focus on that relationship yourself, the quality of everything else you want in every relationship changes, and that's when you can thrive more. Because all the wound friends and the wound situations that we attach to are what hold us back, because we're allowing that wound to still have power over us. We're not reclaiming our power.
That's so good. I like that. The interesting part that you've mentioned that I find so important, like when you speak about trauma, right? People always like, "Ooh, I don't have trauma," because it's still that stigma around, trauma.
And it's the level of what people deem trauma to be. When trauma is anything from having a really bad accident and not being able to then go and do that sport again that you loved and you fell in love with. Same thing with a relationship. Say you love riding horses, or, you love wrestling. You have a really bad accident and you were a high flyer and you could do all these aerial moves, and all of a sudden you can't do those aerial moves. So it changes your whole outlook on that sport that you have love and passion for. It's the same with relationship trauma. You may go through a really bad heartbreak where someone doesn't communicate with you well. They've shut you down every time you tried to speak, parents, and that's your foundation and your trauma that you then will carry into the next relationship, unless you heal from that and why you allowed that to happen in the first place. It's the same with a sport. If you can't identify that, I've had that accident because I did this wrong and I did that wrong, and if I had improved it by doing this little thing better, that may not have happened. So you've taken the cautions away, you've healed what can then lead into trauma. But I think what keeps the trauma is what we identify with. So if we identify with, this happened to me, so this is going to happen again in the next relationship, and then without knowing it, all our actions manifest that same behaviour because we're mirroring what we don't want.
That's such a strong one. We're mirroring what we don't want.
Yeah. Rather than giving love to what we do by accepting accountability for where we went wrong and what we can do. Because one thing that I realised last year is we don't get deceived, we deceive ourselves. Because we are because again, everything, if we reflect and put everything on ourselves, power. Because real power is within, not in controlling others, in getting results from others. That can always be taken. But the real power is when we keep turning out everything inwards. And that's hard because it's constant reflection and knowing that everything is within your control. Within, like in what, not how others treat you, but how you allow yourself to be treated is.
How you show up.
How you show up. Yeah. So if you've allowed yourself to be put down in relationships constantly and belittled, you know, and mentally abused, or whatever you've allowed in relationships, is because of the self-worth and the boundaries that you've set for yourself.
Where would you start if someone is listening right now and they're like, "Ooh, this is me. I'm always ending up in these relationships," and they cannot maybe remember their childhood, or they know they have like a little bit of a tricky situation with their parents and the relationship is not what they wish it was. What would you say, hey, this is the first thing you should maybe do in order to break your cycle?
Rather than having a story, right? Change your narrative. Get out a plain piece of paper, pen to paper. This is a new narrative. This is now my story. This is now what I want my story to be. Rather than, oh, I always have this happen to me. And we constantly relay our past and the trauma. We relay it back and back and back and back. And it becomes such a strong narrative that when it comes to having a new beginning, that we may have it show up because we're ready for it. And the universe is like, here you go. Are you going to make it another karmic, or are you going to be able to completely shift and make this what you want it to be? But until we change our narrative, which means starting that process of becoming who we want to be, we'll constantly be stuck in who we think we are and what we think's and what's happened to us, and we'll be shaped by that, and we're defined by it.
It's almost like an invisible prison. It keeps you stuck in your past because you're also sometimes, and that's fear-based.
And it's what we put ourselves, we build these little four walls, and we're like, this is where I feel safe. It's ego-driven. And we've like, people talk a lot about ego and, oh, that person's egoic. There's so much more to the ego than just someone in the gym flexing their muscles. That could be self-confidence. That could be, oh, I feel good about myself. I've worked hard. The ego is actually very scared all the time. The ego lives, thrives, eats off fear. And all the time we're feeding that ego, we aren't able to step into that new narrative, because the new narrative is going to involve battling that old narrative, which is your ego. Let's look at the old narrative as our ego, right? That has so much power and is so strong. That's what I was saying about the sabotaging. The moment that saboteur showed up in this new relationship of mine, I was like, instead of doing what I normally do, which is I've tried to test relationships to the point of I'd go out with friends, get in serious states, and then try and jump out of cars, or that just to see if they care. Because that's ridiculous, because you think, why would you need to push someone? And as well, that can be quite, like, that's why I say we've all got traits of narcissism in a way, because I'm not thinking about hurting that person trying to do that. I'm thinking I'm stuck in my own pain. And this is why I think, again, narcissism's thrown around too much, because sometimes being in a state of narcissism is you're just trapped in your own pain. It's not, don't get me wrong, there are narcissists. This is why I think it's thrown around too much, because you do have narcissists. But then you have people that have narcissistic traits because of their own pain.
Yeah, it's like
and
a spectrum. Right?
There is a massive spectrum. We've all been narcissistic at some point through pain, all of us. And that was something I faced in therapy, where I actually said, do I have narcissistic? And he went, the fact that you're asking me that means you're not a narcissist. And I was like, but
that's the biggest fear.
There was a part of me that went through a phase of thinking, oh my God, am I narcissistic because I do this for my own? But it wasn't. It was that I let fear rule my behavior sometimes. And it would be in a way to get control from other people, to see if they care, because I'm not able to feel worthy of that care. Do you know?
Yeah.
So trying to jump out of cars, for example, like there's just one, I've done that once. Like trying to open, not like jump out, but trying to open the door, just being overly wild. And I look back at these moments and I'm just like, what was you doing? Like, why did you need to behave like that to see if someone cared about you? And we do like these little things. And
in this moment, were you run by fear? And
so in that moment when that saboteur showed up and I started wanting to I was like, I'm happy. The thought was, am I happier on my own? Am I more content on my own? And that's my ego going, you're safe on your own. I didn't want to be on my own. I don't want to be on my own. I've got this amazing relationships coming to my life that's made me feel incredible. The moment I start to feel a little bit of that high and I'm feeling great and it's real love, I'm like, oh, no, I don't feel safe in this. This doesn't feel safe. And then that's when the ego's going to show up, because you're stepping into that new chapter, that new narrative. And the ego's going, no, come back to the chaos. Come back to the abusive cycles that maybe you're used to, or what you've been in your entire life, rather than this easy, calm, patient, caring form of love that you've worked so hard to have with yourself. And that's why you're now getting in relationships. So no, instead of acting and reacting on it and doing the stuff that I'd normally do to push someone away, I spoke to my partner about it.
Wow.
I said, I've been feeling like this. And I did have one reaction where I started a little row over nothing. And then instead of doing what I normally, I first of all said, I don't want to talk all day. I said, oh, just leave me alone today. And that's what I do. I go into like this avoidant block. And I was like, no, this is your old triggers. This is how you respond. You don't want to respond like this. You want to be able to talk, communicate. Don't let these cycles start. So I said, actually, can you come around? Can we talk?
Wow.
And that was huge for me.
Uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. Oh, I was so uncomfortable. And I sat, and when I'm uncomfortable, I have this little smile, like it's like an awkward smile, because I'm struggling to communicate. And then I just said, okay, I'm not, like, this is difficult for me, so I'm going to try and communicate. And yeah, so it was like growth. And that's where I really saw.
You stepped into the uncomfortable and unknown for you.
And that's when you start writing your new narrative. Facing, the first response is always going to be the past you, but it's recognizing that and going, this is how I want to respond. Then you've stepped more, you've quietened the ego, you've quietened that old cycle, and you step more into who you're becoming. And that voice that's always doubting us and keeping us stuck gets quieter and quieter by doing. It only gets quieter by doing. I had to face it all in wrestling, and the same in relationships. It's by doing. And the reason we doubt ourselves is by lack of knowledge a lot of the time, and lack of awareness. And it's by bringing that awareness constantly on what I need to work on to then feel confident in that aspect, to then be able to communicate and to be able to do this or that.
I'm very curious now, because you mentioned the wrestling, right? And you mentioned actually also through healing, sometimes we get a softer side to ourselves. That's the internal, right? It softens instead of the harsh inner critic. The tone becomes more compassionate, more self-aware. But you've created, and I'm using a little bit the Beyonce referral here. Like she said, I'll create a persona, and that's my stage person. Is Sadie Gibbs and her stage, let's say,
so the Undefinable?
The Undefinable.
The Undefinable is my
person?
persona. That's my superhero. So that's my, like, we all need to be our own superhero, right? So that's what I'm saying in times of vulnerability. And being Sadie comes in, and maybe I need to feel a little bit more. It's the same with Eminem, right? Slim Shady. So you got Eminem, and then you got
Slim Shady.
What's his actual name?
That's a good question. Marshall.
Marshall.
Matters.
So you got Marshall, and then you've got Eminem.
Yeah.
Same thing. He created that to escape the self-doubt and all the fear that was keeping him, and anxiety that was keeping him stuck from really his full potential. Some people have to do that. Some people have to become a superhero for themselves. And it's almost like that's still you, but it's like, so what is a persona? It's you without the emotions.
Oh, interesting.
Having power over you.
So if you checked in with yourself now, would you feel differently as Sadie sitting here right now, instead of if I had now, let's say,
I think now I'm uncovered and I'm raw, like I'm just trying to be fully real.
Yeah.
And the emotions have still got a little bit. So persona wise, when I really need to switch on, I go, this is what I want to get done. And I take away the emotions and I go, step by step, what do I do? And I step into that strong persona to get to start the new narrative, start the new journey. But sometimes if we let all the different emotions and narratives and everything that we're battling within come into play, we don't even move. So for that first step, I might go, okay, persona, this is undefinable, let's go.
Wow.
And then the journey starts, and then it trickles in and out, like with certain aspects. Like I said, you'll be faced with a past part of you that triggers vulnerability, and then you've got to step into that strong character you've created for yourself, the person you want to be, and go, it's almost like your inner queen. How would my queen deal? Because the queen is like your higher self.
Yeah.
The undefinable is my higher self. That's how I'd describe it.
Oh, that's a good
So the
one.
undefinable is my higher self. And then Sadie Gibbs is an emerge of everything that I am. So sometimes I'm my past, sometimes I'm my present, sometimes I'm who I want to be. But the undefinable is the knowing. It's the deep knowing of the certainty of my journey and my purpose and my goals. So when I'm in the undefinable persona, I'm in a state of certainty. And the Sadie Gibbs is a mixture of doubt, fear. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes on? Whereas we all have that inner knowing of what our purpose and passion is. So we need to always be able to tap into that. So I tap into the undefinable when I want a clarity in my journey.
Does she show up in your daily life as well?
Yeah.
Or is there sort of a ritual?
Not just for the ring. I mean, when I'm in the ring, that's full blown undefinable. But don't get me wrong, before I go out to the ring, sometimes Sadie steps in and she wants to take over, even in my outfit. But that's where I say you've got to have that knowing of, I've got this. And that higher self's got to constantly be overriding the physical version of you. So I guess it's like, that's how I'd look at the undefinable for me. It's that knowing and that I can be more. I am more than my physical thoughts and feelings and being right now.
Wow. I love that one.
Yeah. That's summing up. That was deep, wasn't it?
That's really cool. Do you think it's appropriate if we change clothes, or do you feel like it's not?
I mean, I can put the outfit on if you want.
If you don't mind,
okay.
I would love it. I would love to invite your persona here, the confident known. I think that would be amazing. Yeah. Sadie, welcome back.
Hello.
The undefinable.
Yep.
Wow. Incredible outfit. I love it.
Yep, it's my favorite one.
If you feel now in your body, how do you feel different?
It's like I said, a power. Like you feel strong. I feel strong, powerful.
Do get men intimidated by you?
Yeah. No. I think whenever you're in your power, you're going to intimidate not just men. It's going to be people that can't fully feel that within themselves. So, I would say you intimidate people if they're not able to fully emerge into their own power. Because
you could lift a man,
or because of that, maybe, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And the undefinable, did this part of you develop alongside your healing journey? Did it also grow? Is your healing benefiting the undefinable?
Now, who the undefinable is in who I am in the ring is definitely a big part of my journey. Yeah, it's who I always was, but like I said, I didn't have the self-belief, the deep self-belief to really step into my power, because this is like my higher power now. This is my higher self, and like how I feel in the ring is when I feel fully embodied in that. I feel just nothing can take me down.
That's incredible. I ask every podcast guest who comes onto my show.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, but also particularly the undefinable, your higher self.
Yes.
You stepped into your power, but if you could travel back in time from your higher self today to any time in your life, it can be yesterday, it can be when you were a child, in vulnerable moments, what would you say?
My 17th.
Okay, what would you say?
To my 18th. That year was a very good year. I don't know why. I think that was when I fully felt within my power. I hadn't really had any proper relationships. I had my first boyfriend just before I turned 18. So it was like everything was new. I was fully like starting my new job, just qualified as a trainer, as learning to drive. So I'd probably go back to that time. That was when I felt fully like just emerged in life, not really needing anything else or looking back at the past. I was so fixated on the present and excited for my future. So that's how, if I could go back, it would be that year, how I'd love to feel all the time. That would be like, because I think, like I said, when we get older, we start to fixate too much on the past, or we're too here. We're never really like excited about the process. And that was the year I just felt so excited about everything being new and exciting. And yeah, so that's the time I'd remember, I'd say.
And for your future self, for the undefinable, what are your dreams, hopes, wishes?
To keep fully evolving and just building my name and my brand in the business by becoming good at what I do, really. Mastering my craft. And I'm already doing that. I've already come back with a very strong, undefinable process, and I hope that I keep that up, really. And obviously the goal as a full-time entertainer and athlete is to land contracts and to be signed, and to kind of have a bit of security in that as well would be a goal in a physical aspect, but in a spiritual, soulful and every other aspect, I just want to master my craft and just fully express myself through it, really.
That's great. Do you feel your vulnerability and the parts of you that are vulnerable?
It's gone. I was shaking through that whole... My foot was shaking through that, talking through that whole thing. Now I'm in this.
Wow.
I don't feel shaky. It's weird, isn't it?
That's fascinating. But do you think they can coexist and support each other along the way?
I think they definitely support each other, but that's what it is. It's being able to kind of balance that without being defined by the certain limitations that do hold you back in your higher self and who you're becoming, because it can feel powerful. Like I said, just talking through that in my normal outfit. My foot was shaking, my hands were shaking. I was talking more with my hands. I'm not talking as much. I do talk with my hands, but yeah. So I think they have to coexist, and you have to, that's the mastery of the process, because it's learning to kind of get that higher self, the strongest part of you. Because we all have it. We all have a higher self. And it's that first initial start of the journey when we have all that love and that power and that passion. And the moment the parts of yourself that want to hold you back starts to creep in, people slowly start going, this is why I shouldn't do that. This is why. And then you give up. You've let the higher self get smaller.
That's incredible.
And you've shrunk into where you feel safe.
How can people find you? What are the new projects coming up, or what's gonna happen in the next year?
I'm always I'm always in Japan wrestling. Hopefully you'll see me in other big promotions eventually. But again, but I would say the best way to keep track of my journey is through following me on social media. So Sadie Gibbs, and just keep following me through that, and hopefully I get to the places I want to go through. Yeah, doing what I love and what I have purpose for and what I'm passionate about. But yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, Sadie. It was incredible. It was wonderful to meet two parts of you showing up here.
Did you feel the difference then?
I noticed the difference in the energy.
Really?
Yeah. I noticed immediately, I mean, you bring in a confidence, but also an intimidation that Sadie Gibbs did not bring on the same level. I mean, that's not that you were insecure, but it was more like, here you're very in your masculine, I feel.
Yes, maybe, yeah.
And Sadie Gibbs brings
I hope there's still
in
a
both.
bit of the higher feminine power.
Because I like that one. Like a leader also, how I feel. Yeah.
But not this, then the softness kind of goes. There's no like...
It's incredible. Thank you so much for being real, raw and authentic with me today, for bringing your whole self. to my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
And for everyone who's watching, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Share in the comments what your takeaways were from this episode. And please don't forget to subscribe to support me on my journey to bring in vulnerable stories, bring in experts to become a little bit more vulnerable in this world and really focus on what's important. And that's really the journey within. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode, wherever that's gonna be.